Welcome to another Spot On chat. I am Rebecca Monet with Zorakle Profiles. We provide profiling tools to franchisors and to franchise brokers that help facilitate a right fit between a prospective franchisee and a franchise system. I am sitting here under the fan with Robert Bruski from Control V. He's the CFO over there. He's the idea guy. He's Mr. Passion. Welcome back, Robert.
What's shaking, Rebecca?
So good to have you. It is hot here in California, and I have a fan on. So if you see my hair blowing everywhere, kind of imagine me on the bow of a ship, with a breeze going this direction.
I'm going to move to California where you don't have to shovel sunshine. I have no problem just dripping in sweat all of the time. I yearn for that.
Calm down. Calm down.
Deal.
Yeah, I have lived here in San Diego since 1984, and I moved from Iowa. So I kind of get what you're going through.
Yeah.
So I wondered if we could talk about this idea of generations and how it's affecting a business and franchising. I'm a baby boomer, and obviously I have my opinions about baby boomers, but we've been doing a lot of study on the Generation Xers and the Zs and the millennials and all of that, and the effect of these generations on business and on franchising. So tell me what your thoughts are as a franchisor dealing with the millennial generation and the up and coming Generation Zer.
Okay, so first thing I'm going to say is that I can talk for hours and 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 hours about this, okay? But I'm going to try to keep it short. I'm technically a millennial, but I'm right on the cusp of millennial and Gen X or Gen Y right before, right?
Mm-hmm, Gen Y.
So Zennial, I think they're called.
Yeah.
Whatever. So I grew up knowing what it's like to not have technology, but then meaning my generation, created technology,
Mm-hmm.
which eventually influenced the millennials. So when I kind of see this, I really like to look at what each of these generations what drives them, right? So the top one I always think about, the first one, sort of baby boomers, is for the most part, they were kind of driven by status, lawyer, doctor, that's what you need to be, engineer.
Mm-hmm.
Then various things happened in the course of history. The next generation started focusing more on profit, right? Maybe because they went through times where they didn't have money and they realized how important that was, okay? So you've got status, profit, then you've got millennials who were a bit more focused on self-worth or self,
Mm-hmm.
so they may not have gone through so many, the 2007, 8, 9 kind of crisis. A lot of them were still in school. They didn't have to be in the workforce. So for the most part, they've dealt with a society that hasn't had to deal with position or profit. They're now, let's focus on me. What do I deserve? What should I ask for? What should come to me, right? And then you've got this new one coming around, Gen Z or Gen Z, depending on which country you're in.
Right.
I find that these guys are a lot more purpose driven, right?
Yes.
So what can I do that's going to change the world? Now, the interesting thing is, how has this whole COVID-19 thing changed this for Gen Z, right? Because now maybe they're going to be entering the world in a place of struggle, and they might replicate what other people have had in terms of desire for revenue and profit.
Right.
And then, of course, we've got the new coronials that are going to come around, right?
Right.
And when they get old enough, we can call
them. That'll be interesting.
Yeah, when they get old enough, we can call them the quarantines.
The quarantinis. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love it. It's interesting. At Zorakle, we are always looking for psychographic trends. And of course, there's always trends amongst these groups that you have described. And, the boomers having certain skills and certain attributes, a Generation Xers having certain attributes due to the societal forming of them, let's say, kind of that nurture versus nature argument that we can all get into, and then the millennials, and then your Xers and your Ys and your Zs. But it's interesting, as I'm observing, statistics, especially the emotional and social intelligence statistics, not only are the millennials and the generation just after them more about life balance, and about not just making a profit, but also having a purpose, right? And doing something good and kind and that's going to have a long-term benefit to others. But one of the things that we are noticing is a trend, negative trend, not a positive trend, but a negative trend as it relates to initiative and courage. We are seeing this marker, this grit marker. There's like 5 markers within the grit, but including tenacity, optimism, initiative, those kinds of markers. We're seeing those numbers drop with each generation. And honestly, as a scientist, it worries me a little bit, especially in the world of franchising, that will our future franchisees have that same tenacity and that same grit that we saw, even just 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Oh boy. Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's important to note that like franchisors can spend all day defining different groups, but the
Mm-hmm.
important thing is how do you work with them and how to deal with them. And what I found at least is that trying to get them to work like you do or how you do isn't going to work. What you've got to do is you've
Yeah.
sort of got to meet them where they are and try to guide them that way and provide them leadership, right? And the fact that there's a decline in tenacity and courage, I mean, I'm not surprised. I see it. I could probably hypothesize why that is. But ultimately, I think the nature of business, the way it is and has kind of always been, requires some tenacity and courage.
Yes.
So I wonder if there is going to be, as a result of this, a larger demand, a larger supply of franchisees and a smaller supply of franchisors. Because the
Good point.
franchisors are the people who have got to create the system that everyone needs to rely on and have a thick skin, whereas franchisees typically are people that are coming to you for leadership. If they could do this, they would do it on their own, but they're coming to you for leadership. So maybe, I don't know, but maybe this could be the future of a big franchisee buyer's market.
I think you're probably right, especially if the system is solid and can take away some of those issues around, I don't have the same courage that maybe another generation would have. It's again, we were actually talking about this offline a little bit earlier about how the brain requires 2 foods to be activated and to be healthy and to create and to produce and to achieve goals. And one is challenge. The brain needs challenge, obstacles, something to overcome, something to build, a problem to solve, or it needs creativity to stay alive. Come up with an idea and work out all the facets of that. And what I see is a lot of these virtual reality or even the games out there are stimulating both sides of that, right? Where there's always a challenge, there's always an obstacle, there's always something. So it's stimulating the brain to do that. Are there also games and virtual realities that stimulate this more creative side? Because typically this creative side does make for a more entrepreneurial type of individual, or someone that is willing to step out and think outside the box.
Yeah, when you said the brain requires 2 foods, I thought to myself, it's kale, isn't it? It's always kale. Kale is the answer to everything. I'm so
It is.
sick of kale.
Ew, ew, no.
um, yeah, there's always games that are so this is the interesting thing that I want to say about that is that I think almost, or at least off the top of my head, every game I can think of in a certain way will stimulate almost every component of what you're looking for. Whether you're playing like
Wow.
like I'm shooting up zombies, full tilt. You're still exercising your spatial awareness and ability to react and turn around and deal with them. Or if you're
Problem
playing
solve.
a puzzle game, we have a lot of escape rooms in virtual reality, and now they're becoming team-based escape rooms that have a storyline associated with them that require multiple people to do multiple things simultaneously, and there's like a big consequence if you don't succeed, like the launch of a nuclear weapon or something along those lines, right? But we've got regular puzzle games like shaping and tilting glass to point lasers and bouncing things. And then we've got the traditional sort of haunted house games and shooter games and all that sort of stuff. But gaming, ultimately, I think it has like a positive effect on the human mind. And I mean everything in moderation, but also even moderation too. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for that. There's a lot of existence already. And right across the street from us here at the University of Waterloo, there's the Games Institute, where they study things like board games, virtual reality games, mobile games, console games, and how these affect society, the brain, how just how it works.
I think that would be fascinating to study, because these games do give the kids who then become adults challenges and problem solving and strategy and all of that. I mean, it'll be interesting to see as the brain evolves and gets used to these skills that they're learning, how that will translate into the real world, being a franchisee, being a franchise, or being a business owner of sorts. Are they able then, from those new synapses that are being built, to correlate that to, okay, this is similar to that war I was in such and such game, and this is my opponent, and this is saying, so here's what I need to do. Can they translate that into a real life experience? It'll be really fun to see how that all evolves over the next several years.
Yeah, I think you could translate it. Like I said before, I used to be playing Sega Genesis when I was a kid, and there was all these different levels where like things were hidden, and I had to like discover them. And I thought to myself, how could I use this to my advantage? So when my mother would come into my bedroom to try to quiz me on my multiplication tables, what I would do is I would write them out and tape them on the wall behind her, and then try to like convince her that I needed glasses so that I could see.
And you learned that from?
I guess from playing games. I mean, Sonic the Hedgehog had to figure out these puzzles. I'm like, okay, I got to figure out this puzzle and how to pass
There's
this.
There's a clue. You sneeze and it's on the floor, right? And there's the answer.
There you go.
Did your mom ever know you did this?
Oh yeah, she caught me and chased me around the house with a belt.
Old-fashioned corporal punishment.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Oh my gosh, yeah. The last couple of generations haven't had to deal with that. So, right. All right. I always love talking with you, Robert, and getting to learn more about you and how your incredibly brilliant mind works. And I'm really looking forward to seeing where this virtual world and these next few generations, because you're going to be dealing with more than the average franchisor, because I'm assuming the millennials, the Xers and Ys are very interested in your space that you play in.
They are, but they're all broke.
Dang.
Yeah.
I hate that.
Yeah, right?
They're broke.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's more important things, that they're doing. They're buying skateboards or whatever they're doing.
Yeah, I guess so. Or podcast mics. Everyone has a podcast these days.
That's right. That's important. Podcast mics are so important. All right. Well, thank you for your time, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Thanks, Rebecca.